Live. I'm live. Hello, Governor. Hello, Governor. Welcome to tonight's rambunctious, random YouTube Live. I'm your host, Nathan. This is just a off-the-cuff, sporadic live right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, click the bell so you can be notified when I release content. And we're just gonna dive right in. I always try to bring content that is exclusive to you on YouTube that you don't find anywhere else, because that's important. So I'm Nathan, musician, spent 13 years in the funeral profession, and it's amazing how music and funerals go hand in hand or parallel with one another. Welcome. It's good to have you. We're just going to take a deep dive. Just wanted to hop on here at 6 o'clock Eastern. I'm filming me film the live. So, and then there's a lot going on back here. I hope you're well. Hope you're fantastic, really. I want to touch on how digital and technology and how the funeral profession's been unchanged, arguably, for a few hundred years. It's the same as it's been since Abraham Lincoln, President Lincoln, was tracked up and down the railroad. And there's been little change in the grand scheme of things, right, from what all the other professions have done as far as embracing technology. So the funeral profession is a little behind the times, but there are companies, there is technology. I have been a big advocate for it. And there's a lot of websites that are popping up to honor and respect, to pay tribute to those who are memorialized. Like, we'll start with Meta. They have the memorial pages. You can actually set your page up in advance to be in memory, I believe, and you can set your parameters so that whenever you die, someone can have access to turn your memorial on. And then it goes from there. I mean, it's wild. Like the obituary that lived forever on the newspaper, if you remember what those are called, or those are. Now you have your online memorials where funeral homes will host that obituary tribute, and then people can forever and always come and give annual birthday, if Veterans Day, you name it, just to say, hey, we're thinking about your memory, and anybody who's in the family that still stumbles upon the memorial page can reflect as well. And a great company is Gather that does that. It's pretty awesome. But I really have been nuts about experiences and meeting people where they are. That's why we pop on YouTube at 6 o'clock unannounced, so that we can just meet you where you are. You're probably getting off work, or maybe you're about to go in. And I appreciate you. That's what my obsession is I want so badly for you to know that you're appreciated and loved and valued and worthy to be celebrated and respected. So I started in the funeral profession 13 years ago. But before that, I wanted to be a garbage man at 7 years old. And I was in the 90s kids. You have the lever, you pull the lever, and the trash can would tip over. And then the guys would stand on the back of the truck, and they would ride on the back to the next. I liked it. I told my mom, I was like, I want to be a garbage man. She said, let's maybe set our, nothing against public workers, right? Sanitation workers, but set your sights on something a little. And then I wanted to be a magician. I love magic, by the way. It's like my thing. It's like my go-to here on YouTube. I'll just, that and the guy that, if I tell you, you're going to leave and you'll never come back. But, or it's 11 p.m. The guy that girls will sit their bums on his feet, and he's like flipping them all over. It's really cool. I mean, it sounds stupid. I don't explain it well. Those are my two little guilty pleasures: magic and flipping. Anyway, a magician. And then I would write poetry or stories to cope with childhood trauma at 15. And then they started turning into songs, and I'd always sing. And long story short, whatever, here we are. But How the hell did I get on that? I don't know. Nonetheless, I have this passion for just melding the worlds of music and funerals, because you can't have an incredible funeral, arguably, without beautiful music and beautiful ways to pay tribute and memorialize. And you can't have an incredible, beautiful song, an authentic, heartfelt song, without having experienced tragedy. So there's this like beautiful way that they go hand in hand. And when I explain that, people are like, that makes perfect sense. And there's something really beautiful about music and how it has this way of healing. I'll never forget that the moment I realized how impactful music was, and this may be a very silly story to you, and there was a member of the armed forces who died in combat. Actually, they weren't even in combat, but American soldier was playing soccer with some of the local children, and his unit were just hanging out, having a casual day, and a teenager ran up to this individual and stabbed them and took their life. They were gone in an instant. And then fast forward to whenever we have their visitation, ultimately their funeral. During the service itself, we play the song by Lee Brice, I Drive Your Truck. Sounds maybe silly whenever you're outside of that moment, but in the moment, I remember vividly, this is the power of music. Because the song, I'd heard it on a radio. I live close to Nashville, Tennessee. Lee Brice lives in Nashville, Tennessee, recorded the song, I believe, in Nashville, Tennessee. It took on a totally different life. And when I hear that song to this day, I think about this soldier and I remember them. So I realized that when I started to write songs during COVID, like when I was writing these songs during COVID, these heartfelt songs, that because I was going nuts in my head, staying up for being everything to everybody else, but forgetting about my mental health. That's how I coped, were these songs. And that's when I said and made the commitment and promise, hey, I'm not going to write shit just to write it. I'm gonna be mindful and intentional. And then you have, like, within a funeral, you have funeral playlists. Like every funeral home they go to, well, not every funeral home, but every funeral home, this is a generalized statement, you have your playlists, most of which are still controlled on a CD. A lot of funeral homes are still on CDs, believe it or not. There are some tape players, yeah, but there are these playlists, and it's the Amazing Grace instrumental, or it's the same stuff, in other words. But it's really important and invaluable when a family calls upon an establishment, and then you're able to have a great conversation and say, do you know what their favorite music is? Do you remember a song that really makes you think of them? And then taking some of their ideas, suggestions, considerations, and maybe coming up with a personalized playlist of your own that you believe respectfully pays tribute to this loved one. That just is a personalized touch that people really appreciate. Music has this magical way. It's really cool. Hey, Darlene, it's so good to have you. Your priest played good. That's so awesome. See, I mean, there's something magical about music and how people are able to just connect and reflect. So I am glad you're here, Darlene. I'm glad that you shared that, and may her memory be eternal. Music has this beautiful, beautiful way of reminding us. And then it's interesting too, I talk a lot about all these different platforms that are coming out not only to help streamline processes within the profession, because I really mean this. 2-3 years ago, so 2019, right before COVID, I was talking to a seasoned funeral director, and they had come from another funeral home to work with us. And they were telling us about some of their processes. They were saying, yeah, we just roll the loved one's casket. The pallbearers will carry the casket. They'll load the casket of the loved one in the hearse. When we close the door to the hearse, the back of the hearse, all of the staff, that's when they figure out who's going on the funeral. And I'm like, what? Communication. It's like funeral professionals, it seems, are so good about organization when it comes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, flowers, music, priest, minister, pastor, church, cemetery, clothing, undergarments. Yeah. But who's going to help on the funeral? It's like, who, really? And then they have this fumbling moment that you need to be mindful of the fact that everyone's looking, even when you don't think they're looking. So we made sure that we created these processes with these boards. There's this platform called Monday.com, and it's this automation. And it took 2 years to really build it and to refine it. And I always would say, you put shit in, you get shit out. Meaning if you're going to put in, poor information or half completed information, you're not going to get out ultimately the information that the system is built for. So it's not 100% foolproof, really. But nonetheless, it's a process-oriented platform that our funeral homes and then many other homes have established something similar to. Because other than that, it was sticky notes. True story. Think of all the middle of the night death calls that funeral professionals receive. And you have some states that, hey, Jeff, some states that allow non-licensed, they're licensed in the sense of they have a transfer license, or they're just an associate that don't have to be licensed to receive a loved one into their care. They go to the funeral home. They put sticky note on the desk. The desk is the office manager or administration, and there's a fan above the desk. It just, it's spinning because it's warm, and they're keeping the air circulating until that morning. Well, this call came in at 2 a.m. The funeral directors are asleep. They wake up. They go to the office. They know nothing. And then a family walks in at 10 o'clock, and they say, we're here for arrangements. But they knew nothing about the loved one. Well, Joe Schmo, the associate that received the loved one, they put on a sticky note that the Smith family would be in at 10 o'clock. And then the information on the sticky note, but the fan above them blew the sticky note off to the side. Gone. Really happened. So the professional, the funeral director, who was caught with a cup of coffee in their hand, because that's what you do, is you drink copious amounts of coffee after you've cleaned the clean funeral home. They were like, oh, right this way. They were caught with their pants down. So processes, if they had implemented the systems that we used, where you put in information on your phone one time, it sends a notification, not immediately, but that morning before 8 o'clock a.m. says, hey, this is who we received into our care. These are the next of kin, and these are the people that are coming in at 10 o'clock. Nobody would have had a sticky note gone there. Those are the things I think about. I obsess over processes, and you have one chance really to get it right. So I'm proud and grateful for being exposed to the heartache and the sadness and the grief and the happiness for nearly 13 years, because it helped me to become sympathetic and empathetic, because I feel like you can meet someone where they are, you can genuinely have compassion, and yet if you've too experienced heaviness and sadness and grief, and you don't welcome it with excitement, but to truly live, is to create community and to connect with people. And to truly connect with people, grief is part of that. And so I'm grateful and hopeful because of what I've personally experienced, and I'm able to sit with people during their darkest of times and nights and days, and even on social media, the heaviness, heavy as the head, and have people throw shitty rocks at you, and you just, Keanu Reeves made a really good comment. I can't quote it, I can't remember, but essentially it was like, if someone says 2 + 2 = 5, I don't even argue with them. There's something valuable there. It's like, pick your poison, pick your battles, choose them wisely. Nonetheless, I'm grateful to be able to have experienced the sadness, the grief, the loss, the highs, the lows, because I'm able to connect with people authentically. And it's meaningful and powerful. And it's inspired some really, really great music. And since then, that's the thing that is really special about this, for those of you who have been around, or maybe you're new. When I was in 2007, my music career was just on the meeting with labels, and labels wanted me, and flying to and from LA, and it was a lot of stuff happening in the best of ways. And I really know I was not ready. I wasn't ready to be thrust into that world, because I then started writing songs that I thought people wanted to hear. When you do that, I feel like you're missing the mark a little bit. And I did miss the mark. So with my tail between my legs, I was like, I guess I'll become a funeral professional. But then I realized how impactful my life became, because you die to yourself and you're starting to serve others over selfless over selfish. And experiencing what I've experienced, I'm able to reflect upon and share these stories that resonate, because all of us lost so much during COVID specifically. And then that, ironically, after this pandemic, and then my mental health is starting to get shot, and then these songs are starting to take off, and you're like, what the hell? And then you start healing. I start healing. We all start healing. And so we're able to heal together, to grow together, to grieve together. And it's all firing now in the best way. And I love the place that I'm at. And I hope you are too. I hope you're happy with where you are. And if you're not, be gentle with yourself. If you don't follow the podcast, every week I release a podcast called You'll Die Trying. We're in our 3rd season, and we just opened up Bonus Noise. So if you are a podcast fan, not only do you get on Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. the podcast You'll Die Trying, you also have the option and opportunity for Bonus Noise, $4.99 a month. And there are 3 episodes that are up right now, exclusive to subscribers. Well, 2. One releases tomorrow. But I'm really excited about that, and being able to share the stories of the music. And tomorrow's subscribers only podcast episode, it's really neat. It's about, we wrote a song in 2010, so 13 years ago, recorded said song 13 years ago. And then I talk about the meaning from 13 years ago, and how it's taken on a whole new life. It's been redone, re-recorded, and it's getting ready to be released into the world. And you get to hear a sneak peek of it. So you can subscribe wherever it is you listen to your podcast, or something like that. But I want to also talk about, because this is amazing, on TikTok, I don't know if the video has released yet, but Henrietta Bowers Duterte, I believe is how you say it, Duterte. She is the first ever female funeral director, funeral home owner in the United States. And She is an African-American lady in 1858, and her mortuary is a stop on the Underground Railroad. So this woman is pioneering a service, a mortuary, the first female-owned, the first Black female funeral home owner, and she's helping people who are escaping slavery. The amount of stories there is just magnificent. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into that. But I was really surprised. I mean, I was very surprised that Henrietta, and she was, if from what I've read, she was welcomed in the sense of this woman knows what she is doing. And that's amazing because, 1800s, the middle 1800s, you have slavery, racism is just getting worse and worse by the day. And here you are having this badass of a caretaker take care of, tend to the dead at all costs, right? Nothing would get in her way. And then at night, just so happens the mortuary is a stop for people who are bettering their lives. It's an amazing story, and I'm excited to learn more about that. But that is the heart of this profession. The funeral profession is filled with some of the most incredible people. Really, I've learned so much from so many of these professionals. The old timers that used to take embalming machines, like they used to take them from the funeral homes at night, in the middle of the night, in suits, load them in the hearse with a portable table, go to the place of death, unload all this equipment, all these tools, all these bottles of chemicals, these jars, go to the place, really follow me. They would oftentimes embalm a loved one at their residence, discard all of the remaining fluid, make sure they're washed and beautifully reposing, and they would leave. Sometimes with the loved one, sometimes they would leave them reposing at the house. And it's amazing. I have worked with people. Now they were on, I'm so privileged. I've worked with people who are on the very tail end. It was their last year or 2 years in the field, but they're telling me these stories as they're fading out and I'm transitioning in. And they're tough as hell. And I get it that they were the ones that were typing the obituary on the typewriters, and then they have the paper, just to take said paper and run it to the newspaper by 10 o'clock just for them to retype it so that it could go out into the next day's print. It's amazing. And we think we have it tough. Yeah. I know it sounds like, walking uphill both ways and 2 feet of snow stories, but that's where there's the value. That's where there's so much. There's just so much good, like just stuff to hold tight to. Gold nuggets is what I call them, and I put them in my pocket and I think about them all the time. The ones who've paved the way, the kind, compassionate, selfless, the ones that would stop and give you a piece of advice or a leg up or, constructive criticism and not just criticism. Yeah, nicest people ever, some of them. And the caveat to that is the profession is incredible at taking care of oftentimes total strangers. And yes, people in the community, especially small communities who still have family-owned funeral homes, which is great. There's nothing wrong with a larger company owning multiple locations. We had 12. There's nothing wrong with that. I think there's strength in numbers. I really do. There's also beauty in knowing that this man or woman or husband, wife, or brothers or father, son are doing everything themselves. So there's something beautiful about all of those things. The profession is doing a poor job overall of taking care of their own. They are so, not all, and I have to choose my words, but it doesn't matter. Damned if you do, damned if you don't is what you say, as long as everything that you say is in love. They haven't embraced technology. There are a handful of younger professionals who are doing their best with compassion and kindness to educate. That's why we're here tonight, is educated people make educated decisions. And if you tomorrow had to go to a funeral home, my hope is that you're a little less stressed, concerned, anxious about it. You know, making videos about what to say instead of being worried in that dreaded receiving line as you're waiting to walk up to the family to do a final pass of that loved one reposing in the casket. My friend, I've said this story before, my friend flew up to, it's so funny, upstate New York with one of his fraternity brothers because another one of his fraternity brothers from college had passed away. And they're waiting in the line for this young man's mother to receive them, and it was packed. And they get to the line, the mother, and my friend's friend, fellow fraternity brother, looks at her, freezes, points at the loved one reposing in the casket and says, "Sorry about that," and then walks out of the chapel. They get out of the chapel, and my friend's like, and he's like, "I don't know why I did that. I don't know why I said it." So the videos that I put out are to educate you all, to help you all understand what happens behind the curtain with reverence, of course. If it meets you during a delicate time, my hope is that you all would have the self-discipline to be like, I probably shouldn't watch this right now because I'm experiencing grief or the loss or the imminent loss of. And so that's up to you to just, because you could do this all day. You just, that all it is a flip of a finger. But we have professionals who I have no doubt that they're incredible funeral directors. But they flood your comments with, instead of just construction, it's merely criticism. How dare you take such a reverent and dignified service and talk about it? Like, what? How is that even remotely, how does that even make sense? I don't know about you, but when I'm proud of someone, I scream it from the rooftops. I am, my friends, my family, whenever something great happens. I mean, when my 3-year-old was spelling all these words, I'm like, yeah, I want all of you all to know it. And why would you keep, something hidden? I don't think they want to keep it hidden because they're trying to keep like a secret in a negative way. I believe that they think they're doing justice by the profession. And I have to honor that. But in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even 90s, we were in a totally different time and people didn't want to know. And then us weirdos, us millennials, and even not millennials, but in droves, people all of a sudden are like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? During the pandemic on YouTube, the most watched videos were how-to videos, the why videos. And that is why my channel and other funeral-related channels are blowing up, is because it has been the most hush-hush conversation for forever. You knew that when your loved one died, in 2 days, when you went to the scheduled visitation, they magically appeared in the casket. You had no idea how it happened, you just knew it did. And then all of a sudden, people are like, why did that? How did that? What happened here? How does that work? What goes on behind that door? I was, how old was I in 7th grade? Well, I was in 7th grade, and my grandfather in Kentucky, we call him Pepaw. You have granddad, and that's my mom's dad, and you have Papa, who's my dad's dad. He dies. And at the funeral home, I was following around this guy. And he ends up going to this door, and the door had glass, but it was the aluminum or the metal blinds. Whenever you flicked it, it dented it and broke them all out. Yeah. I followed him to there, and he turns around. He's like, hello. I was like, what's back there? He said, well, there are dead people back there. He said that, not in a negative, hateful, unprofessional manner. And I said, can I go back there? I didn't know any different. I was very intrigued. And he said, I'm sorry, you can't go back there. But I was asking the questions at 12 or 13. And now everybody is asking tons of questions. And that's why I'm showing up and answering them to the best of my ability with love and compassion. I just want, as I circle back the wagon, the big ol' ass wagon on the Oregon Trail, to say that the profession needs to be gentle with those who are working to educate. And perhaps if they listen to, maybe they will be able to contribute to the efforts of educated. Because educated people make educated decisions, and everyone wants to promote the biggest way to grow a funeral home is to grow by pre-planning. So marketing of a funeral home is not something that you're like, sell, sell, sell. You don't market that way. Good faith, being present, going to events. It's almost like you're running for office, so to speak. But pre-planning your funeral long before the need arises, it all but guarantees that you're going to use my funeral home establishment at the time of your death. Now, if it's not in business any longer, it's 100% transferable. But nonetheless, that's a future family served, because now we are changing the way that we buy, and we're not as loyal as we once were. It's not a bad thing in the sense of business. It's actually a really good thing, because it's giving opportunity for other providers in the funeral profession, because for the longest time, it's tradition. It's like, well, grandmom's grandma went to this funeral home, so I'm going to go there too. But maybe you don't align with their values anymore. Maybe the people that work there, you don't connect with. There's nothing wrong with that. I think competition's great. So you pre-plan, right? So if you educate people, i.e. on social media, or having these seminars where you do a lunch and learn, or dinner and discussion, or donuts and discussion, or coffee and chats, or pizza and pre-plan, any silly title, if you are educating these people, then what is happening? Educated people feel comfortable with you. They're asking the questions. We're bantering back and forth. We probably are going to develop a friendship. And who are you going to prearrange with? It's a no-brainer. And I didn't do this on social because this has become a worldwide thing. My goal has been to always meet you where you are, educate you, share incredible heartfelt stories, incredible heartfelt music, podcasts, whatever, and then you take that information, you put it in your pocket, and whenever you need it, you use it. And if you stumble upon my family service and during your most delicate time request that we care for you, you better believe that we're going to do an exceptional job. And whoever you call upon will. But you're going to feel more comfortable because you pre-planned, you became educated, the end. So I'll step off my soapbox, but I believe with every fiber of my being, the authentic information, the loving approach that I take, and you absolutely better be delicate. This is a very delicate conversation. But then again, we're all going to die. It's okay. We're going to die. And you're going to be remembered for something. So be kind to people. Be loving to people. Get your affairs in order. Know that you're going to be remembered for something. Save some money. Prearrange, etc., etc. Then it's a part of it. You're going to die. I'm just baffled still, the more I talk about it, why people are so caught up and hung up on, don't talk about what we do. We took an oath in mortuary school. Yes, we did take an oath, but I'm not sitting here talking about, Amanda or Darlene or Jeff's specific situation. Like, just, anyway, I will yield my time and pass it to myself. um, I another thing, and this is interesting too, is you have the funerals, the visitation. It was 3 days, and then when I first started, up until COVID, it was 2. So you had a full night, full day before, and then arguably sometimes a full day the day of the funeral, and then you'd have the burial. And COVID offered this opportunity for families to have everything in one day. And that doesn't mean they're celebrating less. They're just celebrating differently. And we're pivoting also in how we dress our loved ones and what we select. And so the funeral fashion, funeral trends are changing. You have the sweet little old ladies, and men are still coming in their suits, and the women in their dresses, and people are coming to visitation more casual. And I'm fine with that. Come as you are, but I'll tell you, every time I will show up to a visitation in a suit if I'm visiting, because I would always, whether we would go and receive a loved one at 2 a.m, 4 a.m, if there was public present, if it was me by myself and I was just being escorted to the hospital morgue and no one would see me, it was me dressing up for that loved one and honoring them, regardless if someone saw me, if that makes sense. So, but on the other side of that, come as you are too, because you might work in maintenance, or you might work in a cafeteria or a kitchen where you have to wear a uniform and you might have mustard on your shirt. Just go. The best advice ever in the entire world is, if someone that you know has a loved one, you don't even have to directly know the loved one. If someone you know has a loved one that's passed away, I'm telling you, go to the visitation if you can help it. Don't send flowers. I'm not saying don't send flowers. I'm saying don't resort to sending flowers and not go. Go. They won't remember the flowers. They will absolutely remember you being there. They may not remember what you said, but they will absolutely remember you physically being present. I've seen it 13 years. It's real, and it's a beautiful thing. So I have encouraged even family members, friends. They're like, I don't know, like, go. And then they thank me. They're like, thanks for telling me to do that, because it really meant a lot to that family. I had a classmate whose family member died, and I lived out of town, and I hadn't seen this classmate for years. And they were fine. It was packed. And whenever I got up to be received, not because I'm any more special than anyone, but because they knew the steps that had been taken, had been arranged for me to be there. They knew that I made it a point to be there, and they were moved to tears. And that is powerful. People just need to know that there are people that think about them. So keep that in mind. I mean, I could talk, as you can see, forever on this profession. It's amazing and it's beautiful. And if I knew then what I would be exposed to, I would still do it. And that's a powerful statement, because some people live their entire lives and go through motions of work. They go to work, they go home, they watch Suits on Netflix, they might watch Home Alone 2 again, they go to bed, they get up, they dread going to work, they go to work. I am excited to learn new things. I'm excited to serve. I'm excited to meet people. I'm excited to overcome objections. I'm excited to just be able to be present and be comfortable, which, by the way, That's the best way to learn social skills, is to become a funeral professional. Like, I know some funeral directors who are like, hey, Kentucky or Indiana more so. Indiana, it's a single license, so it's funeral director and embalmer. I mean, not everybody is artistic. So in Kentucky, you could be a funeral director and not an embalmer, or you could be a funeral director and embalmer with 2 licenses, but stay in the care center, because my point is some people aren't very good at being social. But if you are relatively good and have the knack, being a funeral director and being able to communicate and sit with and take good notes. I'm the worst, least organized person outside of the arrangement room. I can't find my keys. I do know where my wallet is. I can't find anything. But I can tell you favorite colors, favorite candies, favorite songs. I can tell you the names of every single person in that arrangement room. I can tell you their spouse's names, their kids' names. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. But you put a calendar in front of my face outside of the arrangement room, I don't know what the hell's going on. It's like, what? And then sometimes I did make some mistakes. That's fine. I'm human. If you take anything from tonight's live, I hope that you take away the fact that there's something beautiful in grieving, in experiencing sadness and tragedy and heartache, because it reinforces the ability to be able to connect with people and to be a little bit more patient, compassionate, considerate, especially every Black Friday, Black Monday, whatever cyber deal is happening and everyone's in a hurry. It's good to be able to be mindful of others. And until I breathe my last breath, I choose to show up for myself and for you, meaning I choose to give of myself and of my time and my talent through story, through song, through podcast, through this. And I will do it with love and intentionality and kindness. And for the random people that want to throw rocks, my hope is that they could sift through that muck and be like, oh, well, maybe if I have some ideas in construction, then maybe I could help progress the profession or progress this thing. That's the same for you. So I appreciate you, and you're loved very much, far more than you could know. And I hope that you know your worth, because some people, they don't. And that's what tomorrow's podcast is about, by the way. So if you do anything for me tonight, I just have an ask that you follow the podcast, You'll Die Trying. There is a subscribers podcast called Bonus Noise, and it releases every Tuesday at 6 a.m. along with You'll Die Trying. And I'm really excited for you to hear the story of tomorrow, but you never know where I'll pop up, and you never know when your last day is. So be kind to yourself and be kind to other people. And it is time for Chick-fil-A. Don't judge me. All right. I will see you around the river bend very soon. Thanks for listening to me. It means a lot to me. It really does, that you pop on and you spend time with me and you let me share these stories of incredible people, because an invaluable resource is time, because you don't get that back. So, yeah, I appreciate you. I really do. I'll talk to you soon, okay?